say last year's draft was a win for Holmes. Could do we agree on that?
Yeah,
right?
I think so.
I think I think it's a solid beat.
Right. So he hit with Panay, right? And that was the pick that he had to make and he had to get right. And he did. I think this is the next pick he has to get right. I think the Amon-Ra St. Brown, I think that was good on you. I think you did well for everything. But right, I mean, Panay and Amon-Ra, I could say that everybody drafted was solid, right? But this year, the second pick, he's got to nail this year. Okay. And so to Meko's point, so I think the conversation, is it an impact player? Everybody keeps talking about, like they need to take an impact player. And Malik Willis isn't, quote unquote, an impact player if he's going to sit behind Goff for a year. Now, Meko, I think you had a point where we were headed. And again, go ahead. I'm sorry, but just want to.
No, you're good. No, but to that point, right? So yeah, a couple people are saying that, right? That like, well, you can't take Malik Willis at 2 because Malik Willis at 2 is not an impact player because he has to sit behind Jared Goff. And I say that depends entirely on how Malik Willis performs in camp. If you were to take Malik Willis at 2 and he comes into your team and he basically has a Mac Jones-esque camp where he's the clear-cut better player.
Yeah, he's the guy.
Then he immediately jumps to impact player. He immediately justifies that pick. Not to mention, if we talked about this last week with Jeremy as well, if you're picking a quarterback at 2, you've kind of already told your fan base and you're making us aware that you believe quarterback is your number one issue on the team.
Right.
And so you kind of have to be okay with that. But hopefully the Lions would do the right thing then in making that pick and then making it also an open competition so that Malik or whoever they decide to take has that opportunity to start. I think they would need to be given like a fair opportunity to potentially start because you clearly already, identify that as a position of need.
Right. So, Gionne?
Jeremy also said that pick number 2 has to be a home run. Now, granted, he didn't qualify when, like in what year? I mean, but I'd like to think that he meant home run not in 2023. And so I don't know. As loyal listeners will know, I'm not on the draft to QB train. So I think it's still a little too early. We talked about this with Jeremy. We talked about the plan. Now, granted, we don't know what the plan is, but I think judging by how they've drafted so far, I think they are going with slow and steady wins the race. And you saw it with Sewell. It kind of, I think it was not released, but known that their draft board was Chase, Sewell, Parsons. That was 1, 2, 3. If Chase was gone, they picked Sewell. If Chase and Sewell was gone, they were going to pick Parsons. And I think, we saw, look at the closing play of the Super Bowl, pass rush. I think no matter how the game has evolved, it is an offense-dominated league, offense-heavy, but I think getting someone who can make the quarterback throw the ball errantly, make bad decisions, scramble, panic, that is still incredibly important. And I think that a Hutchinson or Thibodeaux, whichever one you value higher, I think that is, we were talking about impact player. I think that's not just impact in the short term, but I think that's impact in the long term as well, more so than a quarterback, especially considering that this is widely known as a quote unquote weak quarterback class. I feel like, we've talked about this, that these narratives emerge, that people are going to drop, people are going to climb in the,
everything's going to change. It's still settling. The dust is not settled, and it won't settle until like draft day, like first pick. So I'm with you on that. I mean, okay, so we know John doesn't not really into the QB thing. I do think that there's going to be a part that nobody's going to get outside of the Lions organization. I think it's this culture fit. I think that Dan Campbell and Holmes are building something Now, I think this is a conversation probably between Holmes and Campbell, right? Of if, like, let's just say Willis or Thibodeaux or whoever they pick, right? It's an attitude thing, I think, too. I think the culture is a huge thing for Dan. Now, I think that Holmes is going to make the right decision for the organization, but you know that Dan's going to be in his ear about it, right? I think at the end of the day, you know, Holmes' decision, he'll decide what it, you know, what that will be and who this person will be. Now, is there any? Now, Meko, can you clarify for me? There's some good safeties in this draft class, though, correct?
Yeah, there are some good safeties in this draft class. Specifically,
so we would need to pick one early to get one that if we want a safety, right?
Yeah, I mean, the value for a safety isn't very high at number 2, right? We've kind of talked about this in our own like group text. I think we kind of talked about it a little bit with Jeremy. But yeah, like the value for safety just isn't there, even though you have people that are saying that Kyle Hamilton may be the best talent in this draft.
And they're saying that he's more than a safety too, right? That's their argument too, is he's unique. He can do more than he can be more than just a safety. Now, I don't know what that is, right? And they're saying that the role of a safety is morphing a little bit potentially, or that you could, am I right?
Well, specifically the role that safeties play in the Lions defense specifically. And this is something that came directly from Aubrey Pleasant, when talking about Tracy Walker, right? And saying that, like, hey, they ask Tracy to do a lot in their defense. They ask their safeties to do a lot in this defense, as far as coverage, as far as blitzing, as far as lining up with man and making calls. So there's a lot of emphasis that's put on that. So if you're in that camp, which there are people in that camp that are saying, like, hey, you take Kyle Hamilton at 2 because of talent and the importance that safeties play in our defense,
right?
Then you have an argument that could be made. But then I think that is where the conversation of impact comes up, because it's like, okay, but can you count on that impact, right?
Sure.
That is impact that has to be schemed heavily, in my opinion. Like Aaron Glenn would have to come out there and scheme up things specifically for a Kyle Hamilton to justify that pick. And maybe he succeeds at it, maybe he doesn't, but
which they could do, but you're adding another variable into the success of an individual, right? And
everybody knows, or most football minds know, the best way to help your secondary players is to have a good pass rush. So
which we don't have, right?
Well, it's a question mark right now, right? Like we don't know what Romeo's going to what Romeo was going to be like when he comes back next year. We don't know if Julian Okwara is going to take that jump that he needs to take. We don't know if Charles Harris is going to be consistent, or if this was just a flash in the pan. There's a lot of unknown variables here outside of, again, we don't know what players that they could potentially bring in. So when there's that many variables, but you know that this is an area of weakness, well, then it kind of pulls you in that direction of like, well, you need to strengthen this unit because there's too many question marks. We don't even know if the Lions are going to re-sign Charles Harris, right? Like we don't even know that part yet.
But we did do.
I want to go back to something you were saying.
Go ahead. Yep. Go ahead, Meko. Yep.
Oh, I was gonna say I wanted to go back to something that you were saying about culture, though, and this is something that I am struggling with, and I know we asked Jeremy about it last week. As far as
I brought it up to Jeremy, and it's a tough question to answer because only like Dan, those guys can answer it.
Yeah, because I feel like, as much as I want the Lions to have a very good culture as a team, I want them to have good players. And this is where we were just talking about, like, okay, how do you judge impact players and like the value of that or whatever? I would rather than pick impact players over a culture fit right now, because I feel like they need it. I'm not saying that you pick somebody that has like a rap sheet of like arrest and things of that nature, but you pick a guy, for example, right?
But I think a lot of people should be able to get both. At 2, you should be able to get both.
Well, but the point I'm trying to make is that, like, a lot of people love Aiden Hutchinson because the first thing they say is, oh, he's a Dan Campbell guy. He's a guy that will fit Dan Campbell's culture. Dan Campbell will love him, all this stuff, right? But if Kayvon Thibodeaux has the higher ceiling, if people are projecting that he will have the better career, to John's point, right, that he will be the long-term impact player,
then you take him.
I would rather you take him, even though he's not quote unquote a Dan Campbell guy. But you, like you're saying, well, there's no question about his character, though. He's never been in trouble. He's not, a he's never been considered a bad teammate, X, Y, and Z. And then you trust the leadership that you have in place on your team through coaches and players to help him acclimate to the culture that you've set.
If the culture is so strong that we're saying it is, they should be able to bring in talent and have them fit the culture and grow within the culture. And if they can't, then they can move on. But I think that if what we're saying is true, so I appreciate your point, Meko. Right. So maybe it is, I think that was just a question, right? Is there going to be some sort of decision in regards to culture? But to your point, no, we need to bring the talent in and they can fit our culture. Maybe, right, Meko? I'm not trying to put words in your mouth.
No,
right?
I just more so feel like, don't be trying to and I think, John, you kind of brought this up last week. Like, you're looking for guys that fit Dan Campbell's mold. Like, don't be so bound to that you're just like, well, no, this guy has good character. He's always been a good teammate. He was a good student, yada, yada, yada. But he's not a knee biter. Like, dude, not every guy needs to be that. If he's got talent, bring in the talent and continue to surround him with the coaches and the players that will get him to buy into the culture that you've set. Because if he's already a hard worker and all these other good things, then he'll adapt.
Yeah. I mean, the hard work thing, I think is a given with this group, and
it's a given.
Not saying that I disagree, but I think one thing that I would add that's going through my mind as you're saying, because I kind of agree with you, but again, talking about long term, and if Brad and Dan are thinking in 5 to 10 year terms, they're only 1 year into this process. Is that too soon? 1 year in, is that too soon to okay, yeah, we got the culture under wraps, blah, blah, then, because they re-signed Kabinda, and a lot of people were kind of on the fence about that, because now I don't know the specifics of his contract, but I know, do any of you guys know?
I don't. I can look it up really quick while you keep talking.
Okay. So the thing was that people loved Kabinda. They loved how hard he played. And they know that he was a Dan Campbell favorite, but they just were off put by the price tag. And, but he falls into this mold of a knee biter, hard worker, do it all guy. And so surely there are probably more talented guys than Jason Kabinda in the NFL at fullback. But so I just wonder, I guess I'm not disagreeing with you, I guess, in my ranting, where's the line? Because I think there should be a line between, at what point do we start valuing talent over work ethic? And I don't know if or I should say, at what point do we start valuing culture fit lower than acquiring talent? I don't think we're there yet.